What would you do if a single mistake with a pen cost you your family, your home, and your entire life? This was Coco's story. She thought she was just playing with a harmless picture book. Instead, she unknowingly drew a forbidden, ancient curse and watched in horror as her own mother froze into solid stone right in front of her. Now, she had a target on her back. The magical government wanted her executed for knowing their secrets, and a terrifying cult of rogue wizards wanted to weaponize her power. She had exactly one chance to save her mom, but to do it, she had to survive a world where drawing a single wrong line meant death. Here is how she survived. The story opened, and Coco was seen at the bank of a pool, where she had come to wash her clothes. While she was there, she noticed a deer that wanted to drink water from the pool but held back because Coco had mixed washing chemicals into it. However, Coco knew that it was a magical pool, and once she stepped out, the pool would cleanse itself of the chemicals, after which the deer would drink from it. This was a world filled with magic, but Coco had no powers of her own. Because of this, she thought about magic the entire way home, as her only wish was to become a witch and gain magical powers. When she arrived home and went up to the rooftop, Coco spotted a Pegasus carriage flying through the sky, which then landed in front of her house. A group of women had come to buy clothes from Coco's mother, who sold garments in the village. Excited, Coco quickly left her spot and rushed to the front door to see the Pegasus carriage up close. However, her mother stopped her and told her that if she wanted to go outside, she had to finish all her chores first. During this time, Coco noticed a man named Qifrey, who had also come to buy clothes. She quickly took his measurements and then cut his cloth with remarkable precision, which greatly shocked Qifrey. He told Coco that what she had done felt like magic, because she had cut the cloth so perfectly. Hearing this, Coco became frightened and burst into tears, because she had no magic, and gaining it was her deepest wish. She told Qifrey that she had no magic but loved it dearly. Qifrey asked her why she loved magic so much. In response, Coco shared a memory from her childhood. When she was little, she had met a witch at a festival who gave her a picture book and a magical stick. The witch had also placed a glowing light into Coco's shoes, which she had loved more than anything. But when she returned home and told her mother about it, her mother scolded her and said that magic was not meant for her, because she had not been born with magical powers. Only those born with magic could ever possess it. On her way home that day, Coco had watched the glow fade from her shoes and turned back to normal, and at that moment, she had accepted that magic would never be hers. While Coco and Qifrey were talking, a commotion broke out outside. Two boys had startled the Pegasus horses, causing them to break the carriage they were attached to. The women became furious, as the damaged carriage meant they could not return home. Seeing this, Qifrey stepped forward, placed his hat on his head, and announced that he was a powerful witch who could repair the Pegasus carriage. When Coco learned that Qifrey was a witch with real magical powers, she was left completely stunned. Qifrey then picked up a piece of the broken carriage on which certain spells were inscribed, and went inside the house. Before entering, he strictly told Coco not to follow him under any circumstances. She stood guard outside, but could not resist her curiosity for long. She slipped away from her post and climbed back up to the rooftop, where she quietly opened a window and peered inside. What she saw left her astonished. In that moment, Coco understood that magic was not an inborn power passed down through bloodlines. Instead, it was a skill that worked through special tools, such as a pen and ink. When a spell was written or a sketch was drawn and then enclosed within a circle, the magic was activated. That was exactly what Qifrey had done. Realizing this, Coco quickly moved back to the front of the house so that Qifrey would not suspect she had been watching him in secret. After the women left, Coco and her mother thanked Qifrey for his help. That night, when Coco went to her room, she could not sleep. Her mind was entirely consumed by Qifrey and the written spell she had witnessed. She picked up the picture book the witch had given her long ago, turned the magical stick into a pen with ink, and began drawing on a piece of paper. At first, nothing happened. But the moment she completed a circle around the drawing, it worked. A glowing light appeared before her, filling her with joy she had never felt before. For the first time in her life, she had performed magic entirely on her own. Coco's excitement had no limit. She continued drawing and writing on sheet after sheet of paper. Eventually, she opened the picture book and attempted to recreate one of the sketches from its pages, but that particular sketch was something dark and terrible. The moment she completed it, it began to destroy everything around her. Her house started turning to ice. Qifrey rushed to the scene and managed to save Coco just in time. But he could not save her mother, who had already been frozen solid like the walls of the house. Qifrey was furious. He had no idea which spell Coco had drawn from the picture book, and Coco herself was not entirely sure either. However, she told Qifrey that if she could look at the book, she would be able to identify the exact drawing. The problem was that the book was trapped inside the frozen house. Despite this, Coco reasoned that if they could find the witch who had originally given her the book, they could identify the spell and find a way to save her mother. It was not going to be easy. But at that moment, Qifrey took Coco on as his apprentice and made her a promise that he would teach her every magical skill and secret that a witch could know. By that point, Coco had come to understand the hidden truth of magic. It was not something that lived inside a person's body, nor was it exclusive to those born with special abilities. It was performed through the art of drawing sketches and pictures using particular tools and materials. After this revelation, Coco and Qifrey set off together. Along the way, Qifrey revealed his home to her, a beautiful place called the Atelier. The two of them traveled on the Pegasus carriage, soaring high through the sky. When they arrived at the front of the atelier, Qifrey assured Coco that he had placed a protective barrier around her house so that no one could enter and harm her mother's frozen body. Hearing this, Coco broke down in tears and threw her arms around Qifrey, because she was now more determined than ever to learn magic and save her mother, no matter what it took. However, the journey ahead was not going to be simple. When Coco stepped inside the atelier with Qifrey, she was left even more astonished. Qifrey demonstrated a small piece of magic by writing a spell that created a glowing lamp. He also handed Coco a tool called a vapor bubble, which left her speechless, as it contained a remarkable amount of water held within it. After this, Qifrey retreated to his room, and Coco found herself alone, unsure of where her own room was or where she could change her clothes. Just then, a cheerful girl named Tedia appeared before her, delighted to welcome a new member to the atelier. Tedia took the time to explain how the vapor bubble worked and even demonstrated it on Coco's hand, showing her how water could be drawn out from within it. It proved to be an incredibly useful tool. While the two girls were talking, another girl named Riche appeared and asked them to keep their voices down. She explained that the atelier was not simply Qifrey's personal home. It was a place of learning, where apprentices came to study and practice magic in order to become witches. Qifrey only accepted those who had already discovered the true nature of magic. Tedia and Richa were both his apprentices, and they had already heard about Coco, the girl who had accidentally used magic and turned her own mother to ice. This knowledge weighed heavily on Coco, as she was reminded that a single mistake had completely changed her life, but she refused to be defeated by it. She made up her mind to grow stronger so that one day she could undo the spell and bring her mother back. Qifrey then handed Coco a fresh set of clothes and told her to change. Once she had done so and returned to him, Qifrey sat her down and told her the full history of magic. He explained that long ago, magic had not been considered something extraordinary or exclusive. It had been practiced through the combination of various spells, and anyone could use it freely. But over time, as human greed grew, people began crafting dark and dangerous spells in order to dominate and control others. A group known as witches rose up to put a stop to this. From that point forward, people came to believe that magic was a form of power, and the desire to possess it spread far and wide. After hearing all of this, Coco urged Qifrey once again to teach her every form of magic, as saving her mother was her only goal. In response, Qifrey showed her one more remarkable thing. It was a magical window that, when Qifrey changed his location, displayed the view of an entirely different place. This time, when he made the switch, the window revealed the interior of a lake, deep beneath the surface. Qifrey pointed out a tower submerged within the lake and told Coco that inside it was a duplicate of the picture book from which she had drawn the cursed sketch. However, reaching it was no easy matter. The lake was guarded by 4 powerful librarian trials, and anyone who had ever attempted to enter had been eliminated. Coco grew fearful at the thought, but Qifrey calmed her and told her that she would first need to master all the magical skills and knowledge required before they could even consider going there. This gave Coco some comfort, and she felt reassured by Qifrey's guidance. He then led her to the room where she would be staying, which she was to share with another girl named Agate. The moment Coco stepped inside, she was filled with delight at the sight of the magical books and the beautifully arranged room. But her excitement was quickly interrupted when Agat appeared. Agat addressed Coco bluntly as the girl who had made a mistake and frozen her own mother. Coco stood her ground and replied that she would save her mother no matter what. Agat was unconvinced. She told Coco that magic was far too difficult to learn, that someone like Coco, who had already proven herself careless, would only keep making mistakes, and that it would not be long before she gave up and left the atelier entirely. Agat also made it known that she herself had worked incredibly hard, passing exam after exam before earning her place there. Her attitude toward Coco was cold and unwelcoming, as she clearly did not want an outsider living among them. At that moment, Tedia and Richa pushed open the door and pulled Coco along with them, as it was time for dinner. Agat did not join them, having no interest in sharing a meal with Coco. When Coco took her first bite of the food, her eyes lit up, as the dinner was absolutely delicious. Qifrey had made it entirely with his own hands. The following day, as Coco sat reading and studying magic, Qifrey appeared and presented her with a set of magical instruments, including a special pen, ink, and several other tools. Coco was overjoyed at the sight of them. After a great deal of reading and studying, Qifrey asked Coco to recall and explain everything he had taught her. Coco began her explanation carefully. She described how a spell was composed of 3 elements. The first was the sigil, which sat at the center of the spell. The second was the signs, which surrounded the sigil on the interior. The third and final element was the ring, which was drawn around everything at the very end. She also walked Qifrey through several types of signs, including those for fire, water, light, and wind, and explained how combining them produced different kinds of spells and effects. By the time she finished, she was exhausted, but Qifrey was genuinely impressed because Coco had absorbed everything at a remarkable pace. To test her understanding, Qifrey instructed Coco to create a spell entirely from her own imagination. Her first attempt did not go well. The result was rough and imprecise, and she was not at all satisfied with it. Qifrey took the paper, studied it closely, and then walked her through each mistake, pointing out what needed to be corrected and reminding her not to leave the circular ring of the spell incomplete. When she tried again and joined the circle properly, water suddenly burst out of the spell she had drawn and soaked Agat, who happened to be nearby. Coco panicked and rushed to apologize, as she was genuinely frightened of Agat's reaction. But Agat did not lose her temper. Instead, she looked at the spell and pointed out the exact error. Coco had not drawn the spell's words in consistent sizes, and because one word was noticeably larger than the rest, the water had shot out in the wrong direction. Qifrey was very pleased with how the session had gone. He then informed them that he would be away for the next 3 days, as he had to attend the Great Hall, and he left Coco in Agat's care. The moment Qifrey departed, Agat turned to Coco and told her that it was time to prove whether she truly had what it took to become a witch. She announced that Coco's training and testing would begin immediately, which filled Coco with a deep and nervous sense of dread. Meanwhile, Qifrey arrived at the Great Hall, a grand and imposing structure that sat in the middle of a lake and carried an air of quiet menace. He stepped inside and was met by a woman named Alara, who, like him, held a position within the Great Hall. They had all gathered there to discuss the growing threat posed by the heretic witches, whose attacks had been increasing with each passing day. On the way in, Alara brought up the subject of Coco and questioned Qifrey about her, as word had spread that Coco had managed to use magical spells entirely on her own, something that had not been seen in many years. Qifrey responded calmly, explaining that Coco was just a young girl who had found herself in an extraordinarily difficult situation because of what had happened to her mother, and that she needed time to recover. The scene then shifted back to the atelier, where Agat stood facing Coco with a sharp and impatient expression. She informed Coco that she would have to pass a test, one that would determine whether she was truly capable of becoming a witch. Coco agreed without hesitation. Agat immediately led her to the magical window and began explaining everything about the Dada range. Agat told Coco that the place was officially known as the Consent of the Crown, its traditional name. To complete the test, Coco had to pass through 3 stages. First, she had to make her way through a terrifying jungle. After that, she would enter the Dada range, a deeply unsettling place where everything floated in the air, including circular patches of grassy land that drifted freely above the ground. Finally, she had to reach the spot where the diadem herb flower grew and cut one from its stem. Only then would the test be considered passed. Agat added, with a cool sense of pride, that she herself had completed this very test when she was just 10 years old. Coco agreed to take on the challenge. Before she entered, Agat equipped her with a guidance orb to help her stay on the correct path, a vapor bubble for drinking fresh water along the way, and a pair of flying shoes to help her reach the circular patches of land floating high in the air. Agat then opened the portal, and Coco stepped through. The first stage, the terrifying jungle, lived up to its name. It was dark, dense, and threatening in appearance, and Coco felt a wave of fear wash over her, as she had never been in a place like this before. But she pushed the fear aside and steadied herself, reminding herself that Agat had passed this very test at the age of 10. She pressed forward, stumbling several times over tangled tree roots, but eventually made it through and arrived at the entrance to the Dada Range. The Dada Range did not appear especially frightening at first glance, but the sight of the circular patches of land drifting through the air filled Coco with dread. She stood there trying to figure out how she was going to cross to reach the diadem herb flower, especially as a wide lake stretched between her and her destination. Then it came to her, Agat's flying shoes. With those, she could rise into the air and navigate across the floating land masses. She strapped the flying shoes onto her feet and attempted to take off, but controlling them proved to be far harder than she had imagined. She lost her balance immediately and crashed to the ground. She tried again, this time attempting to move through the air the way a sparrow might, but she failed once more. After a great deal of practice and persistence, she finally gained enough control over the shoes to lift herself up and reach the top of one of the floating grassy patches. But just as she arrived, she lost her balance again and plunged straight into the lake below. Underwater, she encountered a small creature called a brush buddy, which looked impossibly adorable, and it followed her back up to the surface as she climbed out of the water. Now Coco took stock of her situation and realized just how dire it had become. The spells drawn on the flying shoes had been damaged by the water and could no longer carry her into the sky. Worse still, most of her magical ink had leaked out and dissolved into the lake. Only a few precious drops remained. For a brief moment, Coco wondered if this was truly the end, but she refused to give up. Back at the atelier, Tedia rushed into Agat's room and asked where Coco was. Agat told her that Coco had gone into the Dada Range to take a test and prove that she deserved her place as an apprentice. Tedia was immediately horrified. She revealed that no one had ever entered the Dada Range before and come back to talk about it. And then the truth came out. Agat had lied to Coco about having passed the test herself at the age of 10. Agat admitted that she had never liked the idea of an outsider being taken in by Qifrey and given a place in his atelier. She had sent Coco into the Dada Range, hoping that the challenge would be too great and that Coco would fail, leave, and never return. But Coco was not the kind of person who gave up. Back in the Dada Range, she found a small boat and climbed into it. As she sat there thinking, her mind drifted to her mother, who had taught her cutting techniques when she was very young. It was those same skills that had impressed Qifrey so much when they first met, and he had watched her cut the cloth with such precision. Drawing on that memory, she came up with a plan. She thought about crafting a wind spell, drawing it onto a piece of cloth, and attaching it to the boat to propel it forward. She had only a few drops of magical ink left, but she was determined to make them count. She gathered some stones, climbed back into the boat, drew the wind spell carefully onto the cloth, and fastened it to the T-shaped wooden post at the front of the vessel. She also brought Brush Buddy along with her. When she completed the circle on the cloth, the boat lurched forward and shot across the water with surprising speed. Coco's plan was working. Then the boat broke apart midway. Coco grabbed the piece of wood to which the cloth was attached, and it lifted her into the air, carrying her forward like a makeshift glider. She soared through the air and finally reached the spot where the diadem herb flowers bloomed. While still in flight, she stretched out her hand and made several attempts to grab one of the flowers. After a few tries, she finally caught one firmly in her grip. Back at the atelier, Qifrey had just returned from the Great Hall. Tedia and Riche wasted no time in telling him everything Agat had done, how she had deceived Coco and sent her alone into the Dada Range. Qifrey's expression darkened with anger. He told Agat in no uncertain terms that if anything had happened to Coco, he would not forgive her. He immediately opened the portal through the magical window, and to everyone's relief and amazement, Coco was standing right there on the other side. Tedia rushed forward and wrapped her arms around her, overcome with relief, because Coco had not only survived but had completed the test and come home safely. When Coco walked over and gently tried to hand the diadem herb flower to Agat could not bring herself to take it. She turned away and retreated to her room, overcome with shame. Qifrey watched all of this quietly, And in that moment he recognized something in Coco that set her apart from anyone else he had trained. She possessed abilities and qualities that were truly rare. To mark the occasion, he presented her with a special apprentice suit. When Coco put it on, she looked every bit the witch she was on her way to becoming. Qifrey began to train Coco so that she would be capable of controlling her power. He told her that there were many types of magical spells, but 4 were very important and powerful. The first was the Sigil of Water, which converted everything into stone, and then suddenly changed it into sand. The second was the Sigil of Earth, which was useful for transformation magic. The third was the Sigil of Levitation, which worked for humanity during the making of swords and shields. The last was the Sigil of Flame. After hearing Qifrey, Coco quickly tried to make a spell of flame, but it failed. Tedia saved her life by throwing water on Coco because Coco had made the wrong spell, which was very dangerous. Coco wanted to become powerful so that she could save her mother's life, but at that moment she was depressed about Agat's flying shoes, which she had damaged when Coco was inside the Dada range. Qifrey found the problem and told Coco to go to the magical city of Calm. Because Coco's pen was not good, Qifrey knew that everyone had their own style and size of pen that fit their hand. After hearing this, Coco became happy about going to the magical stationery shop, where they all arrived after some time with Qifrey. Coco was very happy to see that place, which was filled with witches and magical instruments. They all walked towards the most popular shop in the town, where an old man and his grandson made special pens and inks. On the way, Coco noticed some different types of magic behind them, but she did not know what type it was. The whole place was lively and cheerful, and they all reached the shop, where they saw a most powerful and huge tree in the middle of it. Coco became shocked to see the tree there. The old man, named Nalnoa, was very happy to see the apprentices of Qifrey. They were all very excited, except one, because Agat had gone alone into the market to buy her things. Nalnoa took all of them into his lab, where he made the special ink for witches using that tree. This shocked Coco very much, because she now knew that the magical ink was made from a tree. Nalnoa practically started making the ink in front of them. The process was simple. He put the tree into a bowl of boiling water. Suddenly, the wood changed color into silver and turned the water into ink. This shocked everyone, because they had never seen this process before in their lives. Nalnoa then told them the story of the tree, which had a deep love for witches, and from that time its wood made the special magical ink that all witches use during their magic. Suddenly, Coco saw a witch wearing a black mask and quickly ran towards her, because she thought she could take another book from her and save her mother's life. Seeing Coco run, Tedia, Richa, and Agat followed her because they did not want Coco to lose her way. On the way, they all suddenly entered a smoke that teleported them into another spell world. Brush Buddy saw all of them at that point. The girls noticed that it was not their world and not the city of Calm, because its sand looked very different from what they knew and its color was completely unsettling. Tedia became scared because they did not know the way out. She started crying and feared for their lives, but Agat told her that nothing would happen to them and that they would find a way out. Then they saw the Black Witch, who told Coco that she was the last hope for them. Suddenly, a huge dragon appeared in front of them and attacked them, because it wanted to eat all the girls. The girls ran quickly through that place to save their lives, because the dragon was too large and powerful for them to fight. During the run, Agat attacked the dragon but could not banish it. Finally, they reached a spot where there was no way forward. They tried to use their magic to distract the dragon, which was still following them. Tedia made a spell and entered her witch suit, which flew into the air, and they all became able to distract the dragon. Agat became angry at Coco, because everything had happened due to Coco's mistake of running behind the Brimmed Cap witch, who was very powerful and completely dangerous. Coco realized that she had made a big mistake. Riche then used her magic and made a spell that broke the walls and created a way forward for them. They all started running again to find a safe place where they could stay. On the other side, Qifrey was deeply worried about his apprentices and had no idea where they had gone. Nalnoa's grandson told Qifrey that he had seen Coco running behind the Brimmed Cap witch, who wore a mask on her face. At that moment, Brush Buddy also came to Qifrey and told him where they had disappeared. Qifrey then started to follow Brush Buddy to reach the exact location. On the other side, the girls were very scared because they did not know how to fight the dragon. Tedia was especially scared because she did not want to die. Coco gave her witch suit to Tedia, and told her that everything had happened because of her mistake, and asked her to forgive her. Tedia became happy and created a bubble-like smoke sheet. When Coco touched it, she became very happy to feel how soft it was and wanted to sleep on it instead of fighting the dragon. Every time Tedia became scared, she made this type of smoke using her own created magical spells and slept on them. However, Agat became angry at both of them because it was not the time for fun or sleeping on bubble smoke. They all started to plan how they could deal with the dragon. Coco told Agat that they were inside a spell that was made on the top of a tower, and the dragon was protecting it. She asked how they could reach the top and break the spell. Coco then shared her plan with all of them. She did not want to eliminate the dragon, because she knew it was too large and they could not fight it. So, she thought of a new path they could make bubble smoke for the dragon, so that it could sleep peacefully, and then they could break the spell. This plan was the best for the situation and everyone agreed, because Qifrey had once told them that they could not use magic every time to eliminate and defeat someone. Sometimes, magic was used to give rest and peace to others. They all started to make spells on paper to create bubble smoke. However, for the dragon, they needed a very large amount of it. So, Agat told them all that they could make the spells on the ground in a very large shape. They then made a large amount of bubble smoke for the dragon. After hearing this, all the girls started their work and became very happy that they did not have to fight the dragon. Until that time came, they worked peacefully. At that moment, Coco made a flame spell to help during the bubble smoke making, but it created a blast. After that, all the girls made the bubble smoke spell correctly and placed it in 2 spots on the ground. The last task was to connect the circles of spells. On the other side, Qifrey still did not know about the girls. He only hoped that all his apprentices were safe, and thought about why the Brimmed Cap Witch wanted Coco. He knew that the Brimmed Cap Witch was connected to Coco, which meant all the girls were in great danger. On the girls' side, they all started their work and went in front of the dragon. The dragon saw them and ran after them. As the dragon came near the bubble smoke spells, the girls connected the circles one by one. Then a very large amount of bubble smoke burst out from the spell and surprised the dragon. When the dragon felt how soft it was, it became very happy and fell onto the smoke to sleep. Seeing this, the girls ran towards the tower to break the spell of the masked witch. When they all did this, the whole city started to collapse. At that exact moment, Agat fell from the tower and went into the dragon's mouth, but Qifrey arrived just in time and saved her life. Brush Buddy had helped Qifrey find the entry point. Qifrey then used his magic, made a spell of the dragon, and a beautiful golden dragon appeared, which eliminated the dark dragon and saved all his apprentices. However, Coco's condition was not good. When she woke up and saw that everyone was safe, she apologized and said that everything had happened because of her and asked them to forgive her. But Tedia had already told the truth to Qifrey. Qifrey told Coco that everyone had been saved because of her plan and asked her not to cry. After that, Qifrey told Noah that he wanted him to research the Brimmed Cap Witch's ink, what type it was and how it had been made, but asked Noah not to tell anyone about the research. After coming home, Agat was practicing her new magical spell when Coco kept disturbing her. Agat did not like disturbances during her work, so after hearing some noise from Coco, she left her place and went outside, where she tried a new magical flame light. It had once been very strong, but at that time its light was weak, so Agat thought about how to make it more powerful. Meanwhile, inside the room, Coco was very depressed because she could not make a spell clearly. Due to a lot of hard work, Coco became tired and thought about how difficult the work of magic was. She did not stop and tried harder and harder, thinking of many different ideas, but every time she failed, she eventually fell asleep during her work. Qifrey then came and told Coco about her problem, that she could not focus on her work because she had become bored. Qifrey took Coco to the kitchen, where he showed her some food that she ate and loved the most because it was very delicious. Qifrey told her that it had been made many years ago but still felt fresh due to a magical spell placed on it. Qifrey then asked Coco to make some flames so that he could roast some food. Coco failed every time she tried, making a lot of spells, but every time one symbol among them was not made in the same size. After a lot of practice, she finally gained control over her power, and roasted the food using the spell flame. Coco was very happy to achieve this. Qifrey then told her that she had been able to do it because her full interest was now in the work, and she no longer felt sleepy. He encouraged her to continue her work with excitement. He also shared that he himself had not liked water and never liked his body getting wet, but he had controlled the power of water and had become a powerful witch. Tedia and Richa then arrived and started cooking a meal themselves. As they all used the flame from Coco's spell, they planned to go on a trip with Qifrey, where they enjoyed themselves very much. But suddenly, heavy rain came and the girls were depressed because Qifrey did not like getting wet. However, that time Qifrey did not reject the outing. He used his magic and made a barrier behind them, and they all went outside. Due to the barrier, not a single drop of rain came inside, and they all enjoyed the trip very much. Agat did not come with them because she was very quiet and did not like that type of activity. After the rain stopped, and they came back home, Coco saw a man named Olrugio. He was the watchful eye who always kept watch over the atelier and everyone connected with the Great Hall. When he found out that Coco was a new apprentice of Qifrey, Olrugio became angry and grabbed Coco's hand, telling her to go anywhere but not to stay in that place. On the way, Qifrey stopped him, and they all reached the atelier, where Qifrey told Olrugio about Coco. He also told him that Coco was connected with the Brimmed Cap witches and knew their magical skills, so it was very important for her to stay. However, Olrugio knew that if something went wrong with Qifrey, the Great Hall would get into trouble, because they believed that Qifrey should not take on many apprentices. After saying this, Olrugio went to his room. Coco was very happy that Qifrey had protected her. But at night, when Olrugio was in his room, Coco's brush buddy entered it. Coco was scared to enter at first, but finally she went inside. Olrugio gave brush buddy back to Coco and told her not to enter his room again. However, she was very happy to see a magical glowing stone on the ground, which she had seen many years ago when she was a child. She thought that she had powers because the Brimmed Cap witch had once told her so. But when she walked towards it, the glowing ground turned back to normal. From that moment, Coco felt more determined to do magic. Olrugio was also happy to hear that she liked the glowing ground, but the moment he heard the word master from Coco's mouth, he quickly sent her out of the room because he did not like taking on apprentices. On the other side, Agat was practicing to make a flame light with high shine, but the noise of the heavy rain disturbed her. She did not stop, and finally, she became able to make the flame light shine brightly because that time she had improved her magical technique. Then suddenly, a man appeared in front of their house who was in great trouble. He asked for help, wanting Qifrey to save his carriage, which had been trapped in the river due to the heavy rain. His son was also trapped there. After hearing this, Agat agreed and told Qifrey to please believe in her, saying that they could save the carriage and his son. Agat wanted to go with Qifrey to help the man.